All right, hello everybody. So I was hoping to be starting about an hour ago, but one thing led to the other. I don't quite have all my equipment yet, so I'm making other things do. I apologize for the layout. What you see today is my palette in this camera, and this camera is going to be the painting. Okay, no camera on me today. I'm a camera short, but we've got what we got, and let's get going. I like to clean up the layout a little bit, but I just ran out of time today solving other issues. So if you guys can deal with the picture, and I did not get to get a head start, but I thought why not jump on and show you guys everything I do to get started. All right, so plenty of paper towels, and so I'm going to put the full palette out today, and for this painting, it's ivory black, ultramarine blue, cadmium red, cadmium orange, although haven't used very much, if any of that. I don't know if I will or not. Yellow ochre, and then white. Okay, so I'm going to put that out. After I lay that out, I'll check and we'll talk about oiling out. I'll show you how you oil that. This doesn't really need to be oiled out, but we'll talk about it. Um, yeah, I'm not going to do it on that because there's still just a slight bit of tack to that. That's the other thing. Before I ever get started, I always check. Look, that you see that? That red is still really wet right there. That's good to know. So for that reason, I won't be oiling out. It looks like maybe it was just that one spot I hit. Okay. It's important to know that. You don't want to spread that red all over the canvas. Huh. Don't even know where that came from. Interesting. All right, that feels pretty good. It feels pretty good. So there's no need to oil this out. When I do oil out, what I do is I take my medium and I add some Gamasol to it, some thinner, and I get it into where it's thin and runny. And then I'll put an even coat, cover everything, and then with a paper towel um, and a brush, I pull the brush off, and then I'll come back and make sure there's no uh, thick streaks or anything on there. We want it to be as thin as coat as we can, but we do want it to wet all the paint. And if your paint is dry, you'll see it deepens and it differs from color to color. All right. So I like to have my canvas where I can get to all of it. So I usually set it on the edge here. Make sure I didn't mess up any of our cameras doing that. I think we look pretty good. Or you know what? Let's just take the time. Okay, so you might want to fast forward if you want to see all this nonsense. It's going to take me just a little while to set my paint out, but I thought in case anybody had questions. I don't know why I couldn't figure this out before I went on camera, but I couldn't. All I had to do is move the canvas over. Boom, problem solved. Okay, so let's get this show on the road, shall we? So white. So even as I lay out my, that's off camera, I just noticed. All right, I'll move that. We'll move everything onto camera. Yeah, you see that just fine. Okay, white. And as I was saying, even as I put this out, I'm noticing the quality of the paint. Sometimes This stuff can be kind of oily. What I can do too is just literally lay it out on my paper towel and let that paper towel soak some of that oil up. Like I said, I've been using a lot of that, so I'll just put a little dab of that out. And I know that because of my color study and because I've done these things. So again, we want to take what we know and take what we know and invest it into this process. It's pretty good. So there is quite a bit of metal around my head, and I have a feeling that can mess with my sound. So this will be interesting. Be interesting. I heard somebody say once, you know, I used to get so frustrated, and I just turned that frustration into curiosity. Right? Oh, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Okay, now we'll come back to our yellow ochre. Hopefully you can see that that's a much better consistency than that super, super duper oily stuff we had down there. Okay, so let's get back to where we were in a sense, our shadow, black and red. So I'm going to try to stay focused and efficient, but when I'm doing this on my own time, I like to go slow and start slow. Look, boom. So we're there. Because again, really get a feel for what we're looking for, a feel for the paint. What's it doing today? How's it acting with the atmosphere? The literal atmosphere, how humid is it? Is the paint really dry? Is it really slippery? And then the background, something like that, but it was really thin, so it didn't turn out so dark. That's the other thing with value is this is obviously darker than that. But if I'm applying this very thinly, then I can get it to the same value of that by the way I apply it. So as we get more sophisticated and know what we're doing, we want to think ahead of time and think of different ways we can manipulate that background. Not the background, but the look, like how exactly we're going to build the paint up. Okay, so that's a little dark and that's okay. We're going to come back to that in a minute. What I want to do now is start exploring the skin tones, skin tones in light. So good amount of yellow ochre, small amount of red, and even less blue. And this has got to be lit up. So a decent amount of white. I'm going to put my medium out. Neo Miguel. It's probably overkill, but sometimes on these bigger canvases, they can eat a little more up. All right. So I want this paint quality here to be more. All right, and I forgot how thin that yellow ochre is. So I probably didn't need any medium at all. So I like that color, but I do not like that paint consistency. Okay, this is better, but yeah, it'd be better if that yellow ochre had been sitting on my palette a couple of days, set up. Okay, and we'll add our blue and red to that. Okay, I feel like that went too red. So just grab a little bit of it. Okay, and rather than making one big homogeneous pile here, I'm going to let these little variations stand. And that way, as I need to bend it, I can. So that's just kind of a pile to dig out of. You know, that might be a reflected light right there. We'll see. We shall see. All right. Shadow, our light. So then that's going to put our air in here, right? Remember, we're doing basically orange blue. So there's our orange shadow, blue air, and then orange light, and then bluish highlight. Okay? But it's not a blue, it's a gray blue. So for that reason, let's start with black and white and just get a value that fits in between these two values. Lighter than my shadow, darker than my light. Isn't that what I was shooting for? And look, that's just black and white. And it almost looks too blue, doesn't it? So, pick up a little bit of this and stick it in there. Ooh, now it's a little more harmonized. Okay, remember this background, this air. Hi, Shakti. So I got started a little late getting everything set up. And so the first part of this is me just putting out paint and stuff. And right now I'm mixing some colors and I'm trying to get my background to sit in between those real nice. Okay. All right, so that's just kind of a color to dig out of, as is that. Okay. Okay, so I had some trouble getting the camera set up, so I did not get to do my layout and present it as nice and clean as it could have been. But I'm sure you guys will forgive me for that as we go on. And then let's get highlight here. So like I said, orange for the shadow. There's kind of the background, blue. And by the way, I'm calling this blue. There's no blue in this. I guess a little bit of blue that was up here, but um, that was white and black, and then that pile, which did have a slight bit of blue in it. So I take it back. I take it back. And again, so for then the highlights, again, we don't want a strong blue. So let's see what the black does. And the idea is to take it so that it pops, right? Because if this is blanched and that's color, boom, that'll divide those two. So I'm using the word blue, but it's really much, much closer to a neutral gray. And then being in the presence of all this orange, it looks very blue or bluer than it actually is. Okay. Okay, dokie. So I want some darker air as well. Darker air. So let's start with a darker gray, which means to be more black than I had in my initial. And then I think when I add a little touch of blue and a touch of red to that, that'll darken it down even more. I don't want to go too blue, so I'm going to get some more black. Okay. So that's even darker than that, than my shadow right now. Okay, so we got some highlights, we got some skin tones and lights, we got some air, we've got some shadow, and some background. These are some darks that went a little too dark here. So let's get started and test this stuff out, and then we can adjust as need be as we go. All right. Hey, Karen, welcome, welcome. So I did not need to oil this out. I felt it felt it out, and I was running so late, and I want to show you the next steps. So that oiling out might have to happen on something else. Um, but it's all very dry. It feels like it's a little bit sticky, but I've ran a paper towel over it several times. It's dry. Okay. So the biggest part of this step is you want to warm up, and then like I was saying last time, we need to come in with these big shapes and see how accurate we can get on those. While I'm doing that, I want to remember that this is where I want to end up. So I want to start trying to get some finish on there immediately. That finish is going to consist of some white, quote unquote, right? Some light in the background with a well-defined shadow showing neck, face, hair, face, neck, top of collar, side of collar, shoulder. Okay, so I'm going to have some background that I can cut into this really nicely. Show that. Um, we want some smooth flow in and out here with a catch right here, and then we're going to release. Probably some reflected light under there. I don't even know if I'll get to that today. And then we're going to come to this here, and then I want to work on getting your eye up into these areas. Okay, so let's see how it goes. And you guys let me know if my sound is working, if it comes in and out. If you can't hear me, these wireless headphones have really good sound, but occasionally they go a little bit in and out. Okay, so where do I want to start? I think I want to, why don't we start, let's start with that shadow, I think. Start with the shadow. Okay, so I've been working a little bit this morning already, so I'm warmed up. I would not want to come in just having picked up a brush and not drawn or painted or warmed up and start on something as critical as the shadow. But I feel like I'm a little bit warmed up, and the cameras are running, so let's just get to it. And this is the shadow. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of test it out. Test it out. Yeah, and why am I testing it? Just to see if it sits in there, and it does. It sits in there real quiet. So, unfortunately, my reference is over my shoulder. We'll make this work. So this is critical right here, right? So let's start with this collar. And then we're going to come up, and that's not going to be that low. That collar is going to be, that neck's not that long. There. We want to give enough room underneath. So, joining up to the eye socket now. And then we got to, no matter what you see, we got to show the topography. And once the topography is we're going in to the pinch of the nose where he doesn't have much, but we still have to show a little. And then we're going to go out. And then how far down are we going to go? From that spot, I think it's actually going to be Feather up there. And then we see a good portion underneath the nose. Okay, and then the nose is not a square, so just go ahead and round that. That'll, it's a ball coming off of there. And then how wide is this other side? Let's take it up to the same line. And you see kind of some air in here, but go ahead and put some shadow just to show it's a depression. It's a depression. Okay, and then how wide over to the hair? Like that. Maybe. Maybe. Feels a little more like Little Will to me. All these guys are growing up. I think this was from a couple years ago. They change so fast. Okay. Boom, boom. So then how far down to the upper lip? And we need to show that upper lip going around. Why? Because he's heading back into space this way. So Susan was asking, how long are we in this? Okay, so 27 minutes. I need to remember 27 minutes for Susan. To get the chin up, we've got to show, but then we've got to show the difference, and that we're going to do a horseshoe. Come down, right? So you're going to kind of come down and then come back up, and that gives room for this underplane under here. I'm not going to show that, but that's that. You come down and then you back up for the structure. For that structure, and doesn't have much, but where's the corner of that mouth? Where's the corner of that mouth? Okay, so I'm just kind of getting some landmarks in there right now. This is the shadow side, turning away, falling over, falling over, smiling. Then it comes that way, then back that way. Okay, and from here, where is... Whew, man, that was some hard work there. That was some hard work, and at this stage, and if you're going to do portrait, I don't do much, head painting and drawing outside of class. I do some, but usually it's for class, and it's very demanding on the drawing side. And it's all doable, but like anything, if you work in it all the time, you're just going to be more fluent, move through it a little quicker. Okay, so I feel like we have the twist from the neck to the head up, and then what would reflected light be? So in this case, if we just take our red, and you see how much lighter that is than our shadow, and how much darker it is than our light. But again, we don't want it really loud. But look, so I can just stick it into my shadow and then pull it till I think it's close enough. And then, although this is the bottom plane, you actually want to think about forces and movements. The light is coming down this way, and if the light is coming this way, think about the counter force of the reflected light. So if we're here, let's see. So this is important because this is going to kind of draw the edge of the face. All right, I don't need to put it on all of them, but look how there's a rhythm that goes through there. Okay, and that's a little more important than drawing all the underplanes. And pretty effective too. Pretty effective. Sound is great. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. So let's see, now that we have that in there, you know, at some point, I don't want to go too much. Some point, you just got to get everything on there. So with that in mind, if I feel semi-confident about that, let's check in with our air. See how that's working. And if you know, try not to leave hard edges on everything. Try to respect the power of an edge. Respect the power of the edge. Okay, so what I'm doing there is setting up some air. Comes down. And I want to get all this done so I can lay that shirt collar on top of it. There's not very much of that either. That shirt collar is coming something like that. Okay, so you see what I've done here is I've set in like a vague fog background to lay the white collar on, and then your eye will look at the white collar, and then we're done with this back here. As long as there's no hard edges or distractions, right? It's just a place we don't want to look. And notice that this is slightly different than that's okay. Those slight differences is what's going to give this painting life. Life, life, life. All right, shall we look at a little see how I think that's a good start. Good start. So remember this is kind of the color band of the face. Probably go redder on the end and grayer up top. And then this is further away, so you see that's slightly more and slightly less just from the way I worked it. So that's the color band, and then the blanched band, which would be more yellow. Again, most right there. And then as I work to air, I touch lighter. Okay. And again, it goes into air on this side. So I'm using that stuff that I put down there and just influencing it slightly with that skin tone. Okay. So we're going to pull. This is such a delicate little matter. And look, I want to soften it, but I want to keep going. Why? Because I'm messing the drawing up. So I've got to bring some shadow back there. You just have to kind of have all these thoughts in your head at one time. Okay, so are we still going to where we want to go on this canvas, right? Hey, Susan, welcome, welcome. We're still going to where we want to go on this canvas, right? So that's what's guiding me with each one of these steps is, okay, am I still going? Boom. And I'm not going to know for sure till I get some paint on some of these, but boom, this isn't so weak that now we're jumping, we're not going there anymore. It's the strongest thing at this point. So, so what? So what? And since I'm up here in this color, how are we going to sneak? I want a little bit of the color of that hair just because I don't have any down yet. And I like to get everything down quickly, because I know how wrong I always am. So knowing I'm going to be wrong, doing it quickly means I have more time and more opportunity to correct it. Or another way is saying, do you best you can till you know better, then when you know better, do better. Which means take the best guess right now. And then on next pass, ooh, can you see that that was a little bit wide? Ooh, you know what? That was just a little bit. And I'm going to grab a little bit of orange now. Let's see. Okay. See it's slightly darker than my skin tone, and his hair's slightly darker than the skin tone. So as I step off in value and lose that value power, I want to gain it with some color. Hey, babe. Okay, so, and look, I don't want to jump over to color, but where are we at? So we're going to come over, remember here, we're going to come up here, come around here. So let's keep, and maybe rather than going up, let's make sure that we pull them across. Right? You see, I want to try to get, it's easy to get it to jump off of there, but can I get it to change and just step off of there? Put it in as a question. Put it in as a question. Seems to me that we might be in the ballpark. So let me go ahead and take my best guess. Okay, I want to think of a build of that shape and a falling off, some dot dot dots. Okay, so now what I'd like to do before I start, before I hit these high notes, I want to come to find some of these notes. And not that I want to get right up here because I need to come back and cut in and redraw with both, probably shadow and background. But I want to get the piles where there needs to be so I have all my supplies. So what will that look like? What will that look like? So I know you guys can't see me, but I'm contemplating. That's what's happening right now. Considering. Considering. So I know I need this a little bit lighter. Okay, and I'm going to do it there, and I can always darken it, and I'll show you how once we get going. But if I overshoot slightly, I want to overshoot too light here because this is the light against the dark shadow, right? So I want enough separation. So knowing that I want enough separation, I'd rather go a little too far than not far enough. Okay, so let's just pick some of this up. So my brush is really wet here. I can feel it's still pretty thick, so I want this to cover, but again, I don't want this to be paint quality like that. Can you already see I've got little bitty brush marks in there? I don't know if you can see that on camera or not, but there are already some brush marks in there, and I'd rather not have them back here. So if his side of his mouth is right there, if that reflected light is over here, then man, we're way off on that shadow, aren't we? So the collar's going to come there to that. And you see how I'm just straight up cutting right into that shape that I left last time. And that's why I like to let it set up, because usually we've got some pretty drastic drawing corrections we need to do. We talked about that being the lightest right there, and it is. Okay, is it too light? Maybe, I don't know, but it's somewhere for us to go. And then we also want, see this air over here is still warm. And what did we say? We want it to switch to the cool side from orange to blue. Okay. Where else do we have air? Between the eyes. That turns down. Side of the nose. Okay, do you see how we're using these pieces, and as we each piece we put in the correct order, it looks more and more dimensional, even before we soften the edges. Okay. All right, so now let's go from there up to here. I want it darker than that hair. So that looks pretty blue, which may be okay. Maybe we leave that and just let this grayness have a kind of a climax of blue down there as we walk off of the orange. Right, and notice how now as I spread over these different, this darker, right, that kind of almost glaze, it's not kind of glazing because I'm almost dry brushing, is getting darker too. And that's how we can get some of these effects in these backgrounds. Right? Notice how it helps soften all those edges back there. So I don't know. That's looking awful bright to me, but we do not have our white in there yet, do we? No, sir, we don't. So go ahead and use this again to start coming off of that. And on this side, let's see, that collar is going to come up and end where? Right there. Right there. So you see how then that's a continuation as we're even going through objects. Right, that dark we wanted to hook up there, so I don't want to make the mistake, right? We got to remember our dark design because we need them to come up through there. And if they can get through there, then that dissipates this. We want to make them go up there, make them jump across there, make them come up to here, and we're finishing out. Okay, so what does that tell me? Tells me this needs to be a little darker over here, as does this. And we're going to start darkening off. And then how quickly or slowly you darken off has a lot to do with how much mystery you want in and out of the painting, right? The more mystery you want, the less clarity you're going to have in there. And so you're going to darken into the shadows and vagueness rather quickly. If you want a clearer things, then you're not going to vague off as much or as quickly. All right, this is way too much now. Okay, we took that off as a place to look at. See how easy now it is to extend this out into the darkness and with that underlay I don't have to go and mix 4 or 5 values up. I can just be careful of how far I go, but I'm just pulling this paint over it. Okay, I hope that's showing up. Hey, Sue. Hey, Sue. So just going over the next steps of the painting. Let's see, and I've already been at it an hour and I haven't done very much, but again, this is the thing, we just want to be careful about those steps. And then what step are we missing? Well, we're still missing our light. We're still missing our light. So let's get to it. What's the problem? What's the problem, Jason? I don't know, man. I don't know. So speaking of making different kind of strokes and different kinds of paint, let's make sure that this is looking like background even now. Okay. All right, and we don't want to start with white. So I have to get some more white paint here. We'll see. Let's take this. Let's take this a little bit darker than that. Let's go in the direction of our background. I want this kind of as thick as I can get it. All right, so now, so it's easy to come on top of this and go lighter, but let's see how this looks. So I want that angle like that. How much room? He does not have very much room between. Okay. So that's a little material for us to play with. All right, then as we soften our edges and we get some whites up in the face, I think we will be good. So let's check that theory out. Let's check that theory out. So this is more of a test than a finish here. Again, I like to do things a couple of times, so the sooner I can get it up there, the more I can see if it's going to work. So why does his nose feel long to me again? It's coming through here. It keeps, so I think that tip of his nose should actually be up there. Okay, so I'm going to come back and revisit that shadow and everything. So the nose has got the highlight. The eye would have the highlight. And then this would be somewhat light up here, but then also the hair. Where do you want them? Do you want them to go here? You know, don't send them both places. Send them somewhere particular. Be particular where you're going to send them. And, you know, I don't know that we want to go up so fast. So maybe put these hair highlights down here. Something like that. So does that give us a good path? You're welcome. Thanks, Shakti. Thank you. Okay. So now we've got the pieces up there. The one piece we don't have is kind of the eyes. And what would happen if we want them to go to the eyes? What if we happen to have a dark? And again, what if that dark was on the blue side or the black side rather than the warm side? Let's see. So I got white on that, so I want to make sure to take that white off and get fresh paint. All right, so your eye is going to be drawn there even more because that's the darkest on the canvas. Who knows if I'm getting these anywhere close to drawn right? I'm probably not. Okay. Okay, so now let's get to work. Let's get to work and let's start over. Start all over with the shadow. So we're coming here, so this is going to give us a nice rich darker cast shadow. Darker than the reflected light. Now, if we wanted to, we could have reflected light on that hair too, but I don't think so. Let's just go ahead and keep that around. Okay. Come in, where would this hair come at? Over here. Sorry, when I'm really concentrating, it's hard to talk too, but hopefully you guys, and maybe I can go over it Friday a little more verbally. Okay. Yeah, I keep wanting to make this kid really long. And part of it's because he's looking back and the foreshortening that's going on. So I have to change some of that, which means the lip would have to come up more like that. Edges. All right, are we gonna pull this off? Oh, sorry, Claudia. I'm still working. It took me forever to get the thing set up. Um, I thought I was gonna announce it ahead of time, but I just ran into one thing after another. But this is there. You can go back. It'll be there later. And this is a long one too. So I've already been at it for an hour. So so feel free to pick that button up and scroll through to where we need to go. But again, it almost takes you an hour to get to the good spot. I'm just now starting to get to the good stuff. Okay, and then we gotta have a lighter part of our skin tone here, don't we? So I'm jumping out now. I'm rather going to a pure highlight because I want to save that highlight for the eye. But let's just blanch that out some more. Yeah. And then, okay, you see that carving happening now? Just trying to carve that upward facing plane from that forward facing plane. Okay. Soft edges, soft edges. You are right. We need some soft edges. You are right. Yeah, as I get my act together, because I had to, um, I've got the computer side of the studio set up, but this side of the studio, I'm still figuring out how to set up the cameras. I'm waiting for one camera to come. And so I've got a music stand with a box belted down to the bottom so that my iPad can sit on that. And I've got the iPad belted on the music stand so it doesn't fall off. And that's how you're seeing my painting right now. So, if you got to use two belts, it's going to take you a little while to get ready. And that is what happened. Honest truth. Okay. And again, that's why you can't see me today. I wanted to show the palette instead, and the canvas. But all goes well, after our Friday Zoom, I'll spend the day setting a new camera up. And then we will have 3 cameras. And if my computer can handle 3 cameras, oh, we are going to have some fun. Probably as much fun as you can legally have. Okay, so the other thing that I'm doing is probably not being a very good demonstrator, but I'm trying to see and take my time of what will push this forward. Just that little bit goes back. Goes back over there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, and so on the nose here, what I want to do is I want to come into my background, pick some of my background up. Just get my brush dirty with background. And especially up here, this was a much softer transition. But I'm pushing and pulling that material around to try to get, and that's how it's kind of sculptural. And when you're doing that, it's real easy to lose your shapes. But it's also, if you can control the paint, not so hard to get them back. Not so hard to get them back. All right. So what's next? I think so for me, as I look up here and looking at this as a whole, all of this is way too distracting right now. So like I said, I'm not trying to even get pretty at this point. In the end, you want to keep it all pretty as you go, but I'm trying to get all the pieces in there to make sure that we have related, that we're going to the right place on the canvas. And then I can go back in there and refine those forms on the face. Refine, refine, refine. But before we do that, and let's see, how confident are we that we're in a good spot for, how confident that we are in a good spot? A good spot for what, Jason? A good spot for that collar. So I don't want that to be, I want that skin tone there just to kind of be a gray, but we need that to define. It's going to be inside. All right, we'll have to pull that collar around it. But the important part is that this drawing is right. Get a slightly smaller palette knife, maybe. And we need that collar to go around. Around the neck. All right, we want this to fall off as it comes this way. This we want there to be an edge on. And then this has to wrap around around the neck. And I'm just trying to let go of that white. Maybe there is a little over here on the other side of the collar. I mean tie. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Okay. So, what is all this for? All this that I'm doing right here is so I can put the tie in. Everything is connected to everything else. And let's see, I feel like this came over a little far. A little far. So that would come there. Yeah. So I'm taking some of that paint off so that when I come over it, we're good. We're good, we're good, we're good. Okay. So, am I happy? Is that where? Yeah, I think so. Right there. So what I want to do, what I want to do, tell me what you want to do. Let's see, kind of need an in-between brush. I guess this will do. It's a brand new brush. Brand new brush. What's a stronger color, red or blue? Well, blue is. Red is, of course. So what if we took our blue this will be our blue in shadow. So it's not so dark and heavy. Remember, this is just the shadow. That's going to come down to here. Okay. All right, so this is turning out too strong, but I'll weaken it. But I'm going to let that shadow go a little bit blue there. And again, I need to work other paint in there. But this way, this is going to stay harmonized. Going to stay harmonized. All right, so the blue, again, let's lighten that up a little bit, but don't get it too bright. remember its place in the painting. Give him some blue eyes. Okay, enough fun and games, huh? Enough fun and games. So, are we going to keep this shirt on the warm side? We're going to keep this shirt on the warm side. Okay, so is what I'm putting on top going away better than what was there before I painted? And I think the answer is yes, right? Because this is warm and the eye is drawn to it. Well, that yellow warm versus this slightly blue, warm blue gray that I'm putting down too. And remember, we wanted this to separate off of the background at just at how much? At how much? Okay. Remember vagueness over here, vagueness, vagary, vagrancy. Right? Can't call the fog a vagrant, can you? The vagrant fog? Maybe you could. I guess if you were had a way with words, as they say. All right, well, definitely not the prettiest thing I've ever seen, but again, are we getting to where we need to go? And the answer is yes so far. So before that was too much. Maybe this little bit will be enough, maybe not. I mean, it'll be okay. That light down there. I don't know. I don't know. What I do know is now these edges are a little hard. And yeah, hard edges. They have their place, but too much is too much. Too much is too much. And I want this all to kind of die off right here, so I'll be picking up and scraping off as much as I'm putting down. His shirt doesn't have some wrinkles and ruffles in it. He's definitely not going to look like a kid. But again, quiet, right? It's just a matter of letting go. Letting go, not too much. And that I already see that shoulder over there is messed up because I don't have that collar high enough. Right as we come across, that thing needs to be up here. So let's take care of that. And I'm going to grab a different brush, one that's not quite so big and bulky. And let's see, so Shadow back behind there. He's going to go back behind his neck. Come out here. Down there. All right. Let's see. I have an audience. I was nowhere because it's a wonderful saying if you haven't heard it. When you sit down to start to paint, there's a room full of people with you. Your teacher, your family, your friends, critics. They're all sitting there and they're all watching you. And if you really paint, if you're really painting, one by one, they'll get up and leave the room. And if you're really painting, you'll get up and leave the room. And you just find yourself in this kind of timeless, spaceless place where it's kind of hard to teach an art class. But it's a fun place to be. Wait, what is that? Wow. Wow. Wow, that is disappointing. Disappointing. So we don't always get it the first time. But look, I cleaned my brush off, so now I can grab some of the white that's falling over here anyway. So that looks a little bit better. So it looks a little bit better. Oops. I blinked. I blinked. Just don't blink at the wrong time. There we go. Okay, so again, just trying to create that haze, which all of this emerges out of. Haze is not known for its hard edges or for its detail or the changes. Haze is known for its vagueness. Okay, so at this point, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the background a little bit, and then I may leave this. I feel like he needs a ton of refinement, but man, I've been at this for a while, and I'm getting hungry. And we don't need these things to be too long right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back and revisit this background and just try to close in and make sure we still have our movement, right? Loosen up on that stuff, make sure that we're connecting back here, dark, that we don't get light too far down here, and maybe take some of that light out as well. So let's do it. Okay, so if that's my shadow right there. Let's see what this, yeah. And we just want all this to go away. So we're getting lighter down here, so I don't want to press too hard and get too. And then just lighter touch as I come in there. All right, then I can take that light that I have my brush and then walk the other way out. I gotta be careful. You see how that dark messed up that more to less? I hear you probably saying, yeah, more or less, Jason. All right, again, let's see if we can. So even as we push the individual pieces forward, we want to keep the whole painting going, which means tending to some of these quote unquote unseen spots. And keep them unseen. Keep them unseen. Again, because all that dark is there underneath it, I'm not having to, make sure that everything's covered or else white's poking through. I feel like this got a little bit light up here. Or it's reading. It's just too strong. When I say it got too light, I just mean it's pulling the eye too much. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's quiet that down a little bit. And then I'm probably going to call that my next stage. And then from here, like I feel like everything's on the painting at this point, right? So now it's just a matter of refining. I can refine the drawing. Let's see, I don't need you coming through here. Again, we want to make sure you're moving through the canvas like we want you to move through the canvas. Even if that angle goes down, we still need that angle, just at a less degree, just not as steep. It's not as steep. All right, how's that showing up for you guys? So I think before I leave today, there's a couple of hard edges on the face that I definitely want to soften up so that I just don't have to overcome them later. So let's do that and call it a day. Or a live feed anyway. There's still lots of daytime left. Okay, so let's start with my shadow. Let's start with the shadow. We're gonna, again, I'm turning over my shoulder to see what I'm doing. Makes it a little more difficult. So I need to clean that up again, but I think I'm gonna let that dry. But let's get this stuff in here flat enough so that we can work over it. This is one of the edges that was bothering me a little bit. Get that drawing's off, and then this. Edge as well needs to be softened. Needs to be softened. Okay. So now as I do this, a little bit of this red gets into this background. Right? I'm just trying to get air, this gray on my thing, but what I've done is it's also got that shadow on it, so it's depositing, so it's bringing fresh in here. And that's got to be that shape if he's going to be laughing, smiling like he always is. All right, so there's some drawing things there we'll definitely have to tend to next time. But again, it's not about solving it all at once, but it's basically you're setting it up so you finish with a beautiful solution. All right, now things are getting a little nitpicky here. Again, I just want to take out anything that's going to be a distraction later or hard to overcome. This hard edge on that nose might be one of them. And I really want to go work on some more color on that nose and everything, but I think for today, we should call it a day. Should call it a day. Let's get that transition a little quieter. Again, I'm not flicking this. I'm still moving the small movements, but I'm still moving from the shoulder. All right, well, that was an hour and a half. We pushed it forward. So I hope you got something from that. But again, the main thing is to always keep that movement, that gesture, that how are we going to take the viewer through the painting. You know, I feel like this still needs to be cleaned up. But again, I pushed it forward. Now I can come back and nothing's so out of hand that I can't get control of it again. All right, so with that, I will bid you adieu until next time, which should be tomorrow night at Sketch Club. Thanks, everybody.